Some truths don't whisper. They crash in like thunder. Impossible to ignore and even harder to forget. Mine arrived at a wedding reception, masked in a boozy giggle and a sentence that's been looping in my mind ever since. Let me rewind. I'm Victor. I'm 47 years old and the owner of a commercial construction firm I built from the ground up following 15 long years working under someone else's roof. I'm not exactly refined. Give me denim and work boots over suits, a weekend in the woods over 5-star hotels, and a glass of bourbon over fine wine. But I've done well for myself. I own property across 3 states. I'm debt-free, and every inch of my success has come from decades of consistency, planning, and hustle. I'd been dating Rachel for 2 years. She's 39, works in pharmaceutical sales, and she's the kind of woman who turns heads. Sharp, stunning, ambitious. We first met when my team was remodeling her company's office building. Chemistry, immediate, intense, the kind that makes your pulse skip and your world shift just a little. It escalated fast. Within a few months, she was spending most nights at my place. By the 6-month mark, she'd officially moved in. We slid into life together with ease. Predictable, comfortable, steady. I don't do halfway. If I commit, I go all in. She had access to everything. My financials, credit cards, keys to all my properties. I even started sketching out plans for a home built just for her. Something custom. Something that mirrored her style. She had a strong sense of what she loved, and I wanted to give her a space that felt like it belonged entirely to her. Her social circle was made up of other pharma reps and friends from her college days. Well-dressed, high-achieving types. The Pilates at dawn and champagne at brunch crowd. Not exactly my comfort zone, but I showed up for her. I attended their wine tastings, fancy dinners, rooftop get-togethers. They treated me with the polite awkwardness you reserve for someone fixing your HVAC. Friendly, but never quite sure how to include them. I didn't mind. I wasn't there for them. 2 years in, I thought things were solid. We'd floated the idea of marriage. Those casual, half-serious chats couples have when they're towing the line between someday and maybe soon. I'd started thinking more seriously about it, quietly. I even began looking for a ring. Not just any ring, but something personal. I asked a friend who's a jeweler to design something special inspired by an antique piece Rachel once admired in a shop window. One of a kind, just like her. Then came Brittany's wedding. Brittany was Rachel's closest friend from college, her old roommate, her sorority sister, the one who stood beside her at her first wedding 10 years ago. That marriage didn't last long, ended after less than 2 years when her husband ran off with his hygienist. The wedding was over the top, lavish, and theatrical. Classic cathedral vows, a guest list 500 deep, and a reception at the city's swankiest hotel. A full band, open bar, photo booths, signature cocktails, the works. I put on my best suit, shook the right hands, smiled when it seemed expected, even danced a bit when the moment called for it. I did my part. Later in the evening, we ended up in a loose circle of Rachel's friends, mostly couples, most of them well into their drinks. Somewhere in the lull of the conversation, one of the husbands, Todd, I think, turned toward us and said, "So, when's your big day?" Rachel going to be the next to walk down the aisle. I didn't even get a chance to respond. Rachel laughed, not her genuine laugh, the one I knew. This one was different. Forced, shrill, performed for the audience. She raised her glass in my direction and said, "Him? I'd rather stay single for life." Everyone burst out laughing. Someone clapped me on the shoulder like I'd just been the punchline of a good roast. "Ouch," they said. Someone else chimed in. "Don't sweat it, Victor. She's just mad Brittany's gown cost more than your truck." The laughter kept rolling. Rachel laughed too, then tossed in, "Seriously though, can you picture me spending my whole life in a construction trailer stamping blueprints?" I didn't laugh. I didn't argue. I didn't cause a scene. I just stood there, surrounded by people who thought making fun of me was entertainment, who saw me as someone she'd never actually take seriously. I placed my glass on a side table, locked eyes with Rachel, for a moment that lingered longer than most would, then turned and walked away. Not just from what she'd said, but from the event, the commitment, the vision of a shared future I'd once held so tightly. Her voice trailed after me, at first casual, then confused, finally edged with panic. But I didn't pause, didn't look back. In the hotel lobby, I called for a car and shut off my phone. By nightfall, I had reached my mountain retreat, the place Rachel always said was too rustic for her to tolerate beyond a single night. I sat outside on the deck beneath a blanket of stars, surprisingly calm for someone whose entire world had just unraveled. By dawn, I had clarity. I drove back into the city, timing it so Rachel would already be at work. That morning was spent making a series of essential phone calls to my lawyer, my financial advisor, my bank. Not out of spite, but necessity. When a person shows you their true self, it's wise to believe them the first time. At home, I packed with precision. Clothing, critical documents, irreplaceable family heirlooms. Everything else I left behind. I owned more than one residence. Dishes and furniture could be bought again. My time, however, could not, and I had already wasted too much of it. Before departing, I walked through each room one last time. In my office, I gathered the architectural plans for the home I had begun designing for the two of us, along with the fabric samples and design choices she had once excitedly chosen. In the bedroom, I found the small velvet box tucked away in the back of the closet, the engagement ring I had custom-made, scheduled to be presented next month. On the kitchen counter, I placed my house key next to a printed letter. You have 30 days to secure alternate housing. Utilities will remain on until then. The credit card has been deactivated. Your belongings will remain untouched. Any further contact should be made through my attorney. Details below. No bitterness, no theatrics, just the necessary truths. I left, closing the door on a relationship that clearly meant different things to each of us. I checked into a hotel downtown, switched my phone back on, and watched the flood of alerts roll in. 37 missed calls, 52 texts, all from Rachel, each one more desperate than the last. Where are you? Why did you leave? It was just a joke. We were all drinking. You're blowing this out of proportion. Please come home. I didn't respond. I blocked her number. The following morning, I immersed myself in work. Life doesn't stop because yours is falling apart. By the end of the day, Rachel had found out where I was. She showed up at my office and refused to leave until my assistant finally let her in. Her eyes were puffy, her mascara smeared. You can't just disappear like that, she burst out. I've been going out of my mind. I looked up calmly from my paperwork. I heard you loud and clear last night. You said you'd rather be single than marry me. I'm just respecting your wishes. It was a joke, she snapped. People joke at weddings. Why are you being so dramatic? It wasn't a joke to me, I replied, voice even. And neither was the way you mocked me and what we had to entertain your friends. Her desperation morphed into anger. So that's it. 2 years down the drain because of one stupid line. You're being ridiculous, Victor. Grow up. I stood collecting the documents on my desk. I am growing up. Growing past needing to be with someone who doesn't genuinely want me. Of course I want you, she insisted, reaching out. I took a step back. No, Rachel. You want the life I give you. That's not the same. She left in tears, insisting this wasn't the final chapter. She was right, just not in the way she hoped. In the days that followed, she escalated her efforts. Friends reached out on her behalf. Her sister appeared at my office unannounced. Even her mother called gently, explaining that women sometimes say foolish things, and that I shouldn't let it ruin something so special. I listened respectfully, but firmly, unmoved by any of it. This wasn't a discussion open for negotiation. It wasn't a pause for tempers to settle. It was a definitive choice made with clarity and a sense of self-respect. By the 9th day, Rachel's demeanor began to shift. She discovered her credit card had been declined, her access to my bank accounts was cut off, and my attorney had formally notified her that she needed to vacate the residence by month's end. Reality was beginning to settle in. Her texts took a hostile turn, accusatory and bitter. Suddenly, I was the manipulator, the villain, allegedly spiraling through some midlife unraveling. She insisted I never truly cared for her. I didn't reply. It was words that unraveled everything to begin with, and words weren't going to mend anything. Now, on day 12, I picked up a call from an unfamiliar number, assuming it might be business. It wasn't. It was Vanessa, Rachel's sister. She's not doing well, Vanessa said abruptly, skipping any greeting. She's been sleeping on my couch, crying constantly, barely touching food. Can't you at least talk to her? I've said what needed to be said, I answered evenly. She made a choice, reckless and self-centered. She does love you, Vanessa said quietly. She's devastated. She's grieving her comfort, not me, I corrected gently. There's a difference. That's a harsh thing to say. Her love was real. Then perhaps she should have remembered that before humiliating me in front of everyone, I replied. Actions and words carry consequences. Vanessa exhaled slowly. I've never seen her like this. She's always been the steady one, the one who kept everything together. She's strong, I said without resentment. She'll get through this. After the call, I sat alone in my office, staring out at the skyline. I didn't feel triumphant. I wasn't gratified by her pain. What I felt was certainty. I had done the right thing. Exactly 2 weeks after what should have been our wedding day, I was at my cabin enjoying the solitude when my property manager called. Rachel had arrived with a moving truck trying to take furniture and artwork, items that weren't hers. Following my instructions, he refused her entry. The situation escalated. She made threats, caused a scene, and a neighbor eventually contacted the police. I thanked him for staying composed and asked him to send over the security footage. When the video came through, I watched it with detachment. There she was yelling, trying to force her way inside as officers calmly explained she had no legal claim to anything on the property. The next morning, I received an email from my lawyer. Rachel had retained legal counsel and was asserting partial ownership of the house, citing her involvement in our shared life as justification. I promptly forwarded an old email thread, one in which she had declined my offer made the year before to add her to the deed. She had told me plainly that she didn't want the stress of being a homeowner. A week later, her attorney dropped the claim. 2 months have passed since then. Rachel's now renting a smaller place, far removed from the lifestyle we once enjoyed together. Word has trickled back through mutual acquaintances. She's telling people I overreacted, that I couldn't take a joke. The same friends who laughed along when she made that remark at the wedding are now backing her version of events. But it doesn't change a thing. I remember exactly what was said and what it revealed. The engagement ring custom designed is still locked away in my safe. Maybe someday I'll have it reworked once the sting of that night has faded. The house plans have been redrawn. I'm still building it, but this time it's entirely my own design. No shared dreams, no compromises. It will be mine completely and unquestionably. Just last week, I ran into Vanessa again downtown at a restaurant. She approached hesitantly, unsure of how I'd react. She still misses you, she said after a cautious greeting. She knows she made a mistake. I truly hope she's okay, I said with sincerity. But that chapter is closed. She's having a hard time, Vanessa added. She lost her job, couldn't focus, missed too many meetings. She's still sleeping on my couch, I nodded. There was a flicker of compassion, but no doubt she's strong. She'll find her footing. Vanessa lingered, seeming torn. Then, almost in a whisper, she added, You know, I was there that night at the wedding. What she said that evening wasn't just loose talk, fueled by alcohol. The reality is she'd spoken about you like that for years when you weren't around. Hearing it out loud wasn't a shock. I'd had my suspicions for a long time, but at least it was honest, even if it cut deep. When Vanessa turned her back and walked away, something inside me shifted. The pain I carried from that night wasn't about being humiliated or turned down in public. It stemmed from finally facing a truth I'd been avoiding for ages. The bond I believed we had was nothing more than a story I told myself. Sometimes the most powerful choice you can make is to quietly set your glass down and leave. Not to create a scene, not to send a message, but because you finally accepted what staying would cost you, your self-respect. Rachel hasn't let up. She still calls, still finds ways to reach me after I block her. I've heard she's telling mutual friends she's sure I'll come back eventually. What she doesn't understand is that this isn't a contest. There's no strategy, no winner. It's just over. Some people think I reacted too harshly. I disagree. I acted with certainty. When someone shows you who they are, especially when they believe you're not around to hear it, it's wise to believe them. Let me address a few things that have caused some chatter. First of all, yes, the house was mine well before Rachel ever stepped through the door. We were never married, and this state doesn't recognize common law arrangements. Legally, she had no stake in the property. Secondly, for those asking why I didn't confront her during the wedding, what would that have accomplished? So she could twist it, lie her way out, or make a public scene. I chose to let my actions speak for themselves. They said everything that needed to be said. Third, people have asked if there were early signs. There were, though I ignored them. The little jabs about my work being just construction, the way she'd avoid family events, the embarrassed glances when I showed up in work boots, all of it was there. I convinced myself she'd come to value those parts of me eventually. I was wrong. Fourth, someone called me cold for walking away without offering her a second chance. But protecting your sense of worth isn't heartless. It's essential. 3 months have gone by now. Life has found a new rhythm. The house build is progressing. The foundation is solid. The frame is up. I spend most weekends on site, personally overseeing every step to make sure the details match my vision. There's something deeply satisfying about building something from nothing, untouched by compromise. Rachel finally stopped trying to contact me. Her sister did reach out once, mentioned she's seeing a therapist and focusing on herself. I told her I hoped it helped, and I meant it. Holding on to bitterness is draining. My energy belongs elsewhere now. I've started easing back into dating. Not long ago, I had dinner with a landscape architect I met through work. She's sharp, straightforward, and genuinely curious about things that matter. It's early days, of course, but after everything I've been through, it was a relief to sit across from someone without feeling like I had to perform.